Hi everyone and welcome to this week's WARNO Devblog. This week it's all about what's coming next, a bit of a status update they say. So they hope everyone is doing well and that everyone is enjoying Victor. Now first up this week they want to talk about the next milestone, and that is the Mortier milestone. Now what they do say is, as usual, it's done when it's done and they haven't got a time frame for release yet for certain. However, they can tell us what will be coming in the milestone itself. First up is that the airport map, the 3v3 variant, will be coming in this next milestone. There will also be new 10v10 versions of some of the existing maps, including Twin Cities, Rift and Triple Attack. There will also be some new variants of the existing 1v1 maps, which will be more balanced. There will also be other improvements, updates and changes, and some of them will be listed in the following. Though, once again, everything that is going to be mentioned here is very much work in progress, they say. So they move on to talking a little bit more about the new maps. So they're going to have the new airport map. Obviously, we've discussed this a lot. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the previous update, but it will be in the next one. Then the airport map will have new assets and improvements in level of design, gameplay and balance. Dynamic urban combat is one of them, and also there'll be some updates to some of the pretty graphics, as you can see here from Panzer. Now obviously again they mentioned the 10v10 variants. It's quite a lot of work because they have to tweak the AI so they can accommodate the new player count, but we will be getting Twin Cities, Rift and Triple Attack. They're very keen on feedback for the 10v10 maps so they know where they're getting it right and wrong. Then there are the new 1 vs 1 map duel variants. So these are more balanced 1v1 maps, basically aimed at competitive play, and they'll obviously go into the ranked ladder. Now the first duel map will come in and it will be 2 lakes, or basically a readjusted 2 lakes where the points have changed, and it's to make things a bit more balanced. Things should be in the sense of things like distances being similar, size of points being similar, ease of holding the points and what's around them, being very similar for each player. And they note they're also working on a 1v1 dual version of the airport map. The other thing to look forward to are the new operations. Yes, there are going to be 2 more operations coming. They say they are aiming to include a host of single-player battle scenarios intimately tied to the overall fictional World War III scenario. Now, the current operations range from desperate rearguard combat like Black Horse's Last Stand, Soviet airborne assaults in the Kitzingen Ruse, and the devastating tank battles in Red Juggernaut. The next 2 operations, one will take place in the far northern end of Centag with the British Army of the Rhine. Oh yes, the Brits are coming. While the other zooms in on the Soviet efforts to breach NATO defences on the outskirts of Frankfurt. So first up is Hold Until Relieved. The first scenario, the British Army of the Rhine, will have its glorious appearance. While the British were chiefly responsible for Northag in our war scenario, the successful Soviet push on the operational boundary between Northag and Centag sees several British Army units being pushed further south from their original positions. In the upcoming Hold Until Relieved, forward deployed elements of the British Army of the Rhine are hard-pressed by the Warsaw Pact spearhead aimed at Dortmund, with Soviet units first taking Kassel and then nearby Warburg. Stepping aside from the current devblog, I do wonder if when we get Northag expansion or DLC, we'll see a bit more of Dortmund. I have a few ties to Dortmund myself from childhood and indeed adulthood, funnily enough. I've found myself back there a couple of times in my life, so I'm really curious if we'll see more of that, especially since a lot of British forces were centered around there. There was military bases there. I've actually been to where the military bases were in the last couple of years, but unfortunately they're mostly gone now. They've been replaced by other buildings that were all knocked down when the British moved out of that area. But one of the very interesting things in Dortmund is you can actually go around and you can see certain houses which are clearly built to British specifications rather than German, so they were obviously built for the squaddies that were over there and their families. Anyhow, back to the devblog itself, now that I've had that little aside down memory lane. So, with only limited forces available, the British 33rd Armoured Brigade at Paderborn, part of the 3rd Armoured Division, is rushed to the front to buy time for the reserves to deploy in the rear. A battalion from the Queen's Own Highlanders dug in behind the Diemel River, gets badly mauled but holds the line. The player takes control of a small tank detachment of the Blues and Royals Regiment. They are sent to the Demel River to reinforce the infantry and defend against the renewed attack by the Soviet VDV's 35th Guards Air Assault Brigade. In the scenario, you'll receive a handful of heavy-hitting Challenger tanks, but not much more. With this precious armor, you need to beat back the VDV attack on your positions, while trying to keep as many units alive as possible. If you succeed, some additional reinforcements become available, with the operation entering its next stage. Every man is expected to do their duty as you aim to destroy the Soviet FOB on the opposite bank of the Demel. That sounds really good. I'm glad they're adding additional scenario objectives. In this case, obviously destroying the FOB at the end there. Really looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. Because one of my big feedback things to them is that I would really like to see more side objectives and things like that. More optional objectives. Stuff that's just a bit different from sitting and defending or pushing and capturing a point. So the next operation is called Sledgehammer. A day later in our timeline and moving the action back to Frankfurt, the Soviet army keeps up its devastating offensive into West Germany. The reliance on masses of artillery and brute force without paying much attention to casualties has led the Soviet vanguard to the doorsteps of Frankfurt. NATO defences are coalescing on the outskirts of this major objective. The satellite town of Hanau is quickly being reinforced by an array of American and West German troops. It is on you, comrade, commander of the 57th Guards Motor Rifle Division, to clear these outposts, breach the defensive lines, and allow for exploitation forces of the 79th Guards Tank Division to take Hanau. The Sledgehammer operation is a tactical mission aimed at answering some of the community's feedback. You will get just a few units, and every soldier and vehicle counts. The support you receive from HQ depends on the player achieving various objectives on the battlefield. In order to reach your goals, you need to overcome fierce enemy resistance centered around the River Main, including breaching prepared positions. We hope that Sledgehammer gives you a bit more of a tactical, adaptive experience that you guys are looking forward to in an operation. That sounds absolutely awesome, Eugen. That is exactly the type of thing that I was really hoping we would get from some of these operations. Really pleased to see you are experimenting more and pushing through with additional objectives and ideas. Really pleased to hear that. Can't wait to try these two. And now we're getting onto the visual effects rework. This is Panzer's hard work. So they've been busy revamping the visual effects in WARNO. Since early access release, we've been hard at work improving various FX wherever possible. It's all about immersion so that players get the best bang for their buck. What kind of explosive changes can you expect? Well, for instance, things that like to go boom will get a visual touch-up. Napalm is going to see an update as well. Smells like victory, commanders, they say. The explosive demise of vehicles will get a pass as well. Those fiery crashes of aircraft and helicopters will also see an upgrade. Older FX using low-resolution textures, bomb impacts and mortars will also be upgraded. Now, all of that is still very much work in progress, and the images you're seeing again are work in progress. Panzer has been very hard at work making all these adjustments. Next up is some further changes to armoured units. With Milestone Victor, we've taken pains to address the infamous tank meta. We hope you like the results, but we are not done yet regarding armoured warfare. So they say next on the agenda is addressing some feedback, which is mostly correct, about the way the Soviet T-72 and the French AMX-30 series are represented in WARNO, as well as other individual units. So they say they are talking gameplay here, not visuals. So what exactly are they working on? So the T-72 specifically, unlike the belief of many, the T-72 would have been a fairly uncommon tank in any World War III scenario set in West Germany. No frontline Soviet division in East Germany deployed this series, which was considered rather for export or second-rate mobilization divisions. Instead, the Soviet army would deploy the much more capable T-64 against Northag and the T-80 against Centag. The only T-72 user in this particular theatre of war was the East German National Volksarmy. Yet the USSR never delivered enough of these tanks to equip more than a division and a half, and in fact these were not even the most modern variants. The 9th Panzer Division facing Northag was the only East German formation completely equipped with a T-72. The 7th Panzer Division facing Southag got the leftovers. The T-72 had its advantages and its flaws. The tank's main quality was its high level of armor protection for its time. Even the weakest, basic T-72 Ural variant was over 4 times better protected compared to the best version of the Leopard 1. We have corrected this within WARNO by giving all T-72 an average of +2 front armor and +1 side armor. On the other hand, one drawback of this tank model was its notoriously obsolete fire control system, including a mechanical ballistic calculator that relied on manual inputs for tank gun accuracy. We have reduced the T-72 firing range to represent this better. The T-72 Ural with the TPD-2-49 coincidence rangefinder will only fire to a maximum of 1,925 meters, while the other variants of the T-72 equipped with a laser rangefinder as part of the TPD K1/1A40 system will only fire up to 2,100 meters. So basically, in summary, they're getting better armor, but their guns being nerfed. So they're going to take a hit from most tanks before they get in range to fire. Next up is the T-55 AM2 and the AM2B of the East German Army. They, on the other hand, featured more modern Czechoslovak Kladivo fire control systems. Sorry if I've mispronounced that. They had considerably better tank gun performance. These tanks will fire effectively up to 2,275 meters thanks to their fully automated fire control systems. The state-of-the-art laser beam riding 9M117 gun-launched missile in the 9K117 Bastion-equipped T-55 AM2B will fire beyond even this range with increased accuracy. Next up is the AMX-30, another recurring point of feedback, accompanied by the usual slew of French bias accusations, concerns the AMX-30's armour. We agree that it is indeed too thick. Having put this improvement off for the time being, we will implement the change soon, meaning the AMX-30 variant will lose an average of 2 front armour and 1 side armour. However, to ensure we correctly model all of our paper tanks, we will better model a piece of technology to the AMX-30 that is commonly overlooked. The French tank's coaxial 20mm gun was slave to the modern Kotak fire control system, allowing for unparalleled performance. No other 20mm gun during the Cold War was paired with a fully automatic system and laser rangefinder. While losing armor, the AMX-30 receives a major boost to firepower for the 20mm in return. In other words, stepping aside from the devblog for a minute, it's going to be massively overpowered in terms of its autocannon when this releases. French bias. No, in all seriousness, these sound like good tank changes and we'll just have to see how they play out. The AMX Alf 1, another French unit, has been overlooked for too long. The self-propelled AMX Alf 1, introduced in 1986, was one of the most advanced 155mm SPGs in our time frame. The combination of the modern L39 barrel with revolutionary fully automated autoloading system allowed for a quick rate of fire. A single burst of the AMX Alf 1 would be like 4 M109A2s, while also outranging them too. As such, the AMX Alf 1 unit will receive an autoloader able to fire salvos at a high rate of fire. Once again, stepping away from the devblog here, I hope you're going to suitably increase the price of that unit to compensate for the fact of the amount of damage it's going to pull out. So they've included a little summary here. So T-72 tank variant will receive an armor buff and a decrease in tank gun range. AMX-30 tank variant will receive a decrease in armor but an improvement in 20mm autocannon. The T-55 AM2 will get an increase in tank gun range, and the AMX Alf 1 receives an autoloader with an increased rate of fire. And well, that's everything for this week's devblog. Thanks very much for joining me, everyone. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned, as there will be loads more WARNO content coming up. And a reminder that next week we'll see the next Friday Night WARNO over on the SD League channel, with some of the map team coming from the developers to have a chat about the maps and everything map related.